Thank you very kindly, Reverend Dr. Lewis, for those very generous words of introduction. And to all of the distinguished leaders assembled here, President Reese, and all of the freedom-loving friends and brothers and sisters here in Selma. I told you last week that I would be coming right back. And I think I told you when I first came here back in January that Selma in some way was going to be my home until we could get real freedom in this city, and I still mean it. I'm happy to see you out in such large numbers tonight, and you're out as you always are. It's a glorious experience to come to this community over and over again and see the kind of enthusiasm, the kind of determination that you so well reveal. And I'm absolutely convinced that when people get this determined, when people are this alive, and when they are set on fire, so to speak, with the spirit of freedom, there is nothing that can stop them short of the goal that they seek. Walter Reuther was saying to me, he said, you know the thing about hate, when a man's mind is filled with hate, it has no room for reason, you see. And you know, really, when you look at this movement, we have seen this over and over again. I was talking with late President Kennedy one day, and this was after the Birmingham movement. And he said, you know, maybe we shouldn't be so hard on Bull Connor after all. He's done more for civil rights this year than anybody in America. You know, there's some truth in that. And these people get mad and they can't reason. And so they end up helping the movement much more than harming the movement. Now, we aren't going to get like that. We're going to keep our minds clear. Yes. We're going to keep our hearts pure. Yes. We're going to keep our morals high. And we're just going to center the very philosophy and meaning of love in the core of our lives. And if we will do that, we'll get Selma straight. We'll get Dallas County straight, and we'll get all of the counties all around here straight. Now, we have said that until the business leaders of this city, what we call the economic power structure, to use a sociological phrase, until they will do something about conditions in Selma, we aren't going to buy any more downtown. Now, they have a little suit on, I understand. And all we're saying, we aren't trying to put anybody out of business downtown. We're just trying to put justice in business. That's what we're trying to do. No, we are not bogged down in a negative. We are accentuating the positive. Yes, sir. And we are saying that we are no longer. Now, the other thing, we have a First Amendment of our Constitution. And we are going to insist on First Amendment privileges. Now, the Founding Fathers didn't just put that amendment there. See, the reason I couldn't ever be a communist is because I believe that the great moments in history have been the moments when individuals were left free to think. There's some sacred in a nation that talks about freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly. You can't do that over in Russia. You can't do that in communist China. Because Karl Marx said in substance that in this interim period between what he called the conflict between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat in this class struggle and the emergence of what he called the classless society, there had to be a dictatorship of the proletariat. I ain't going to put up with no kind of dictatorship. I don't believe in it. What Reverend Andrew Young said, we've got to integrate the schools in Selma. Now, you know, when the Supreme Court rendered the decision back in 1954, it's very interesting. What they said, very interesting. They said that segregation generates a feeling of inferiority within the segregated. And they went on to say that separate facilities are inherently unequal. Now, I came to see this even before we had a civil rights bill, and even before we had the integration of public accommodations, even before through a suit we got the Atlanta airport integrated, the Dobbs House restaurant there. I remember one day I had flown in from Montgomery to Atlanta. And there was a gentleman, a white gentleman on the plane. He was my seatmate. He was from Mobile. And that plane had come from New Orleans, stopped in Mobile, and then Montgomery and Atlanta. I had a wonderful conversation with him. We got to Atlanta, and I had to change to take a flight for Norfolk, Virginia. And we got ready to leave on that flight, and discovered that it had a little engine trouble. And so they brought us back, and I was very happy about that. I don't like to get up when the engines are acting up. It isn't that I don't have faith in God in the air, it's just that I've had more experience with them on the ground. So we got back. So then we got in, and they started giving out tickets, you know, to get your dinner, because we were going to be held up 2 hours. So we went in the Dobbs House restaurant there in Atlanta, and of course I saw the white people going to these tables, and I just took a seat. And then I noticed that they wouldn't serve me. They started serving all the white people, so finally a lady came to me, one of the waitresses, and said, we have a place for you right back here. And they had a curtain up there. And I said, you mean to tell me that I'm supposed to go behind that curtain? So she said, now don't get upset about it. Said, really you shouldn't act up now, because things have been very peaceful here. And I said, I'm not going to act up. I'm just here to get my dinner. I want my dinner, and I plan to eat it here, not eat it. So finally she went and got the manager. He said, now I'm embarrassed. Said, I'm really embarrassed about this. I hate to have to do it, and we don't want to start nothing around here. He said, I think we can get this thing straight, but if you start anything, said, now we know, we've been keeping up with you down there in Montgomery and these other places. Said, now if you start anything, it's just going to hurt the image of Atlanta. I think we can clear this up. Then in the meantime, Reverend, I want to assure you that everything back there behind that curtain is the same. It's equal. You have the same plates, the same knives and forks, and the same food. There's no difference in the food. Everything is equal. It's really equal, Reverend. I wouldn't put you back there if they were going to make any difference. I said, now, sir, everything isn't equal back there. I said, I'm going to tell you why. Now, number one, you see all these murals up here, these beautiful paintings you got here on the wall. I said, now, you inflict me with inequality in terms of my aesthetic taste. I can't even look at these pictures back there. I said, I'm blocked off from these pictures. I say, now the other thing is, I said, I am getting upset. I said, you have given an inequality in terms of a greater potential accumulation of bitterness. I said, the fact that you're going to put me back there makes me potentially more bitter than the people out here. And I'm looking at now, I can't even. Now the final thing I want to say is that it looks like we're going to have a voting bill soon. The South can't block anything any longer than Washington like they used to. You know, anytime they wanted to block legislation, they filibustered. You know how they used to talk. And they used other methods to keep it from coming through. But last week the Senate voted overwhelmingly to pass a voting rights bill. And that bill has now left the Senate and is in the House. Now the House of Representatives is going to pass a stronger bill. The House of Representatives will probably repeal the poll tax in their bill. And this will mean that we'll have to go to conference between the House and the Senate. And then the final version of that bill will come out, and then the President will sign it. And we are hoping that it won't take too long to do this because we have a summer project. We have more than 1,500 students. We have more than 3,000 applicants already, and we've got to start screening because we really can't use more than 1,500 to keep it from being so large that we can't really control the situation in these communities. But we are going to work in more than 75 counties all over the Black Belt South, and we're going to try within a 10-week period to double the number of Negro registered voters in the Black Belt South. Now, I believe we can do that if we work hard, if we organize every block, if we knock on every door, and if we stimulate every community. I believe we can do that. And things will change. Yeah. Don't let anybody fool you. Man picked me up in Columbus today. Dr. Smith, he's on the city council of Tuskegee. Another Negro is on that council. And something very interesting emerged there in Macon County. First, they were very wise. They reveal the wisdom of restraining, using their power with restraint. That's very interesting. They elected several Negroes, but they made it very clear. They weren't out to put all of the white people out. They were saying in substance that we must work together. They could have put all of them out. So they used their power correctly. And this is what we're going to have to do all along. But Dr. Smith was saying to me that there hadn't been a single recommendation that he and Reverend Buford made to that city commission that didn't go through. And I tell you, it goes through because those other white men on the council realize that they can't get elected without the Negro vote. The mayor knows that he can't get elected without the Negro vote. As I said last week, there isn't a single problem in race relations that the state of Alabama has that cannot be solved by 400,000 Negro registered voters. So we are going all out, and we solicit your cooperation as we embark upon this all-important job, not for ourselves alone. We are really out to save the soul of America. And I tell you, we can't save the soul of America without in the process saving our white brothers. And they aren't free. I was sitting in a restaurant in Atlanta just 2 or 3 days ago. It's an integrated restaurant. And I had gone there to kind of get away from things, to get something to eat. As I was sitting there, someone came from the desk and said, "You have a call, Dr. King," and I wondered who would be calling, who even knew I was there. And on the other end was the voice of a white man. He said, "Dr. King, I could not allow this opportunity to pass. I hate to bother you while you're eating. I hate to call you away like this, and I'm somewhat ashamed of myself." He said, "I was just in the restaurant where you are now. You may have noticed 6 men sitting about 3 tables." I said, "Yes, I remember." He said, "I wanted so bad to come over to shake your hand. I wanted to tell you how much I admired you. I wanted to tell you that I'm with you in what you are trying to do. But I was afraid that some of the men sitting with me wouldn't understand." Is that man free? When you enslave an individual, you enslave yourself. How many of our white brothers are slaves to their fears, slaves to their prejudices? How many white preachers are there in the South, slaves to their congregations, and they are afraid to take a stand, and so they prefer to remain silent behind the safe security of stained glass windows. They know that segregation is wrong. They know that they should take a stand, but they are not free. They are afraid, and they haven't allowed the gospel of Jesus Christ to permeate their lives. And we've got to save those preachers. We've got to put Christianity in the church. And I say to you that as we walk these streets and as we work all over the United States, we are doing more than saving ourselves. You know, we are putting Christianity in the church, and we are making the marketplace beautiful. We are giving life to life. And it may well be that when historians write about this period, they will say that the Negro did more in the civil rights struggle and get civil rights for himself. When he started walking the streets, marching down, talking about jobs, it caused the whole nation to reevaluate the whole structure of joblessness, and a war on poverty came into being. The Negro started boycotting schools up north. It caused the authorities like Dr. Conant, former president of Harvard University, to look at the whole structure of the school system and say that quality education isn't a reality for anybody. When we started sitting down at lunch counters, students on college campuses started thinking about peace. They started talking against capital punishment. They started thinking about great issues. And nobody can call the student generation now a beat generation. It is a generation of concern and activism. We've done a lot in this civil rights struggle. We're going to make America a greater nation.